Hey everybody, this is Sil. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the latest highlights, key trading, and active investing strategies. Here I've got a chart of the US yen. Not that it really matters because candles are candles, so it could be futures, it could be an index, it could be an ETF. It won't really matter. All the principles apply. So directionally trading in a certain direction becomes a lot easier usually because you're going with the flow versus against the flow. So we're going to be looking at direction here and drawing a few and using a few tools to identify trend, but also help you in terms of whether things are still in the trend, but also reversing the trend. So what you can see is plain as day here is there was a downtrend, right? That's pretty obvious. And there's an uptrend going this way, right? So we're going to identify a few things with trend lines to better focus on what that trend actually is. And you can also notice at the very top, there's actually a resistance horizontally right about there based on the price action where there was some stalling and then eventually they broke through support, fell down. Now they've come back up and they've hit resistance there as well. Meanwhile, as I said, trends coming up. We're going to draw some channel lines that'll portray that. So use our tools on our nifty software and we've got a top trend line right there. And if this works out in a nice channel, we should be able to copy and paste that and get a pretty close, similar duplicate right about there. So you can see at least the most recent price action activity all coincides perfectly. We have touch, 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 touch at the top, touch at the top, touch at the top here. Here is a little bit of a crack and snap like effect. It was support across that way, just for reference sake. So if all works out correctly, and as I zoom in here a little more, if history repeats itself, we'd like to see this come back up to the top and maybe it continues on through this resistance area. If not, maybe at some point it reverses, in which case if the trend gets broken below, that may be a strong sign then that things are going the other way. So let's progress and see what happens as it stalls right near that $112 mark. And why there? Well, very quickly, you see this large red candle. It happened to go right through the support area. That happens to be now a short-term small area of polarity that where this broke down aggressively, just like it had support in this vicinity as well. That's why it also held at that trend line included. So there's the resistance. There's the pullback. So at this point, are you looking more bullish or bearish? Well, right now it still looks bullish because you're still in the trend. You're still within and at least above the trend line in 111, but essentially you're still holding above this breakout area of this large green candle as well, including, as I mentioned earlier, this large area of resistance that was there before, right? All the way across. So that's still holding on a bullish standpoint, but let's continue and see what happens next. So there it starts to maybe break down a little more, but it's still testing support levels for now. Now, still trying to hang on, and it starts to slip through, still trying to hang on to levels of support for the most part, still trying to hang on. There's the bounce back. So now, is this considered outside of the channel? Well, chances are yes, because you already drew the trend line, right? It started to slip through lower shadow, lower shadow. Maybe you give this one, but this one at this point, not likely. So what's happening now? Well, just like anything else, if you have a support and resistance, if it comes through, it may come and test that, and then go again. It's a testing to see how solid that area is. It's the same thing here. It falls through, finds a support, bounces back up. Now it's going to test the horizontal, including the trend line, to see if in fact it's porous, if you will, or is it solid as a rock. That's a pretty bullish candle, right? And so now what happens? Let's see what happens next. It fails. And then you start to see more failure from there. There's another retest once again on another bounce back. So that was a sign likely right away that the trend was broken. This was certainly confirmation that things were weaker. They went lower. Now you just got to deal with your targets if you find that this is a reasonable trade setup at that point. So let's continue on just to see what happens going forward. And that's live as we speak. So you can see that they're still stuck at a resistance level across right about right here. So why do I put it there? Well, because there was a breakout area right there, and there's a resistance area right there, and it continues all the way across from that original resistance, including a breakout right here as well. So that was a significant line horizontally that coincided with a rising trend and channel line as well. So while all this was going fine, at some point all good things come to an end. So how long had this trend been going on? Well, you look at this March, came up, came down, came up, and then came down. So it had several runs higher, and at this point perhaps it's in jeopardy of not going any higher since it's fallen out of the channel. I hope that was useful and helpful in learning more about using not only horizontal trend lines but also diagonal ones where channels may be useful in your assessment of the direction as well as the direction of the trade and whether there's a reversal or a continuation. Don't forget to check the link directly below this video for our latest special.